ring.
Okay. Oh yeah, no, we're live on Facebook.
Give you the. Are we live?
We are live. I can see we're live. Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, hello everybody. So what would be good if I'm just, oh yeah, we are. We're live and streaming. Dead on 12 o'clock as well, Hilary. Amazing.
Fantastic.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is just gonna make my phone on Facebook so I can see any questions coming in.
Okay, wonderful.
Otherwise we won't know what's going on.
We've seen your dog wander past.
Oh yeah. Excuse the dogs. We've got dogs and puppies. And Hilary, show what you've got on your lap.
Oh, on my lap here. This is, you have to brace yourself for how cute my new kitten is. She's 8.5 weeks old and I adopted her at the weekend. So
oh my goodness.
She's already, for the first 2 hours of coming into my house, because I have 3 other cats who were not particularly impressed. So she spent the first 2 hours behind the sofa hiding, and considering we're now Thursday and she's actively seeking me out, she climbs up my leg to sleep on my lap. So different from the first 2 hours.
You can't beat baby animals. I've got a puppy. I'll lift my puppy up at some point. but he's at that age where he's just biting my ankles.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about animals, are we?
No, we're here to celebrate Dementia Awareness Week.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's all happening this week and really, really excited to invite you onto our page, Hilary, to talk about your journey with looking after your mum, but also your work legally with what you do as a solicitor, and also the joy that you've just written a book as well, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Which is called?
It's called Compassion with Dementia, and it's an essential guide to living well with dementia. So it's not published yet, so please don't try and Google it or find it, because it's not out there yet, and I will provide lots of information about when it's due to be published. But it's the book that I see that the people that I work with who really need. I've written it because I've seen the need in the community of people supporting people living with dementia. And it's the book that I didn't have when I was looking after my mum through that journey. So stepping back from that a little bit, it might be helpful if I say what I do for a living, and also what my connection to Memory Matters is. So I'm the chair of trustees of Memory Matters Foundation, which is the charitable arm of Memory Matters. There's also a community interest company as well, and so there's the 2 different aspects of Memory Matters, and as a charity they need the arm, that branch of Memory Matters needs trustees, of which I'm chair. So I was very grateful to be asked to be chair of or asked to be a trustee, and then I kind of barged my way in and I want to be chair, please.
It's such an important member of a team.
And it's because I work as a solicitor, so I'm a practicing solicitor for Nash Co solicitors, and I specialise in supporting people who have physical, mental or psychological healthcare problems, and I do their wills, their powers of attorney. For some people I manage their affairs or support the attorneys and deputies. And I also attend some best interests meetings and court of protection applications, and where there are discussions about what's going to be best for this person, then I'm the person who would represent probably most commonly the family, and potentially the individual, as to what would be the best thing to happen for them on things like discharge from hospital, where there's a disagreement of opinion as to what's the right thing to do. So that's what I do. So dementia is the most common condition that I deal with, and what I see routinely is carers who find the situation quite stressful, and who have questions but they don't know where to come for answers, and that's why I've written the book.
Amazing.
to provide
yeah, and so what's really interesting is when, please excuse the scratching.
I can see them in the background.
Sorry, it's manic here. Yeah, so what's really interesting, I think, is when you have that perspective of having experienced it within your family, which you have as well. And can I ask you some questions? So, like, why dementia? When did you first start getting really interested in dementia?
Now, about probably about 15 or 16 years ago, I started working with people who were in care homes, and it actually started off by looking at whether or not they should get continuing healthcare funding
Right.
at that time.
So can we just say what continuing healthcare funding is for people who might not know?
Of course. So continuing healthcare funding is the funding stream that's available where somebody's needs are so great that the NHS should pay for them. And there's a very complicated process of assessing somebody's needs as to whether or not they're suitable for NHS continuing healthcare funding. And because it is so difficult and it's not straightforward, it becomes very difficult for people without support to navigate that process and to know what's the right thing to argue and to know what's the right test. So I see families who say something along the lines of, but this person couldn't stay at home on their own. They have to go into a care home. And that's not the test.
No.
So it started off by doing that kind of work, but it started with beginning to work with people who were in care homes. And for anybody who's never been inside a care home, they're not places that you're used to seeing that many elderly, often elderly, but that many people with impairments of various kinds in one place. So they become quite kind of alien to everyday life places to visit. But once I started visiting them, I realized that actually I really love the people who are in there. I absolutely love sitting and listening to people with dementia and hearing their stories and trying to help them. I kind of, the first time you go to a care home, it's quite unsettling almost, because it's just not something that was familiar. But once I adjusted to that sense of this isn't familiar, now in fact it's really familiar to me, and I go to this place all the time and I see those people all the time, and in fact I've got a very different view probably than lots of people about what's old, what's unwell, what's quality of life, and so on, because I now exclusively work with people with various levels of, as I said, physical, psychological, or cognitive healthcare problems.
So did you at that time, was that when you thought that I want to do this?
It didn't start like that, but over time I've realised I absolutely love it. There have been a couple of really crucial clients that I can remember thinking, this is somebody that I'm really seeing differently and making a difference with. There was one particular client I saw who was in hospital, and she was barrier nurse because she'd got an infection. And so she was in a side room, that's how she was treated. And when I went in to see her, I was asked to wear gloves and an apron, appropriate with barrier nursing. But she was kind of really lonely and sad in this room on her own, because I think everybody was very concerned about catching the infection that she'd got. And I walked in and I remember chatting to her, and she became quite tearful at one moment. And it wasn't a condition that could be transmitted via the air particles, so I wasn't asked to wear a mask. And so this woman is sitting there crying, and I just held her hand. And even though I was wearing gloves, because I suspect that nobody would have wanted to have held the hand of somebody who was barrier nursed, because everybody became quite frightened, and probably even some of the nursing staff or some of the support staff may have kind of kept their distance slightly. And I just took the calculation, you know, worst case scenario. I was told what the condition that she had. I realised that for her as a very elderly person, this was a big issue for her. But for me as a well person, I would have been uncomfortable, but I would have been fine. And you know, I just kind of took the risk. It's much more important that this woman feels comforted in there was that human context of holding this woman's hand is much more important than my fear of getting the thing that she's barrier nursed for.
And I'm guessing that in your role, that risk is something that you look at a lot, is it? In terms of, you know, best interest meetings as an example of somebody really wanting to stay at home when everyone else thinks it's unsafe. And, you know, we're all really frightened, aren't we, to take risks, and we want to keep people safe and cover them in cotton wool. So, I mean, that must be a challenging part of your role.
I find that attitude really, really, really frustrating, because it's absolutely discriminatory, because you and I, Laura, we're allowed to take risks, we're allowed to do really stupid things. The example that I give a lot is donuts. There is very little nutritional benefit in a donut, and yet they're eaten all the time. You know, there's companies that sell nothing but donuts. And so if people are allowed to, you know, if you and I are allowed to eat donuts and it's not unlawful, then why can't people with impairments make unwise decisions if that's going to make them happy? And my attitude when I come across these situations where it's all about risk, is saying, well, let's look at what this person wants. Let's see if that's at all possible. Let's de-risk it as much as we can, but still go ahead and still do the thing that's really important to them, because that's the whole idea. That's the whole concept of the phrase that gets bandied around a lot, person-centered care.
Yeah.
Person-centered care is what it says. It's about looking at this one individual person, what is important to them, and not generic person with dementia care. Yeah. It's not about generic old person, generic old lady, generic old man, generic anything. You know, it's about this one individual person. What is it that makes them happy? Can we do?
And I would want you on my team, definitely. I mean, isn't it important that we have advocates as we, you know, as we get older, and as we, you know, if we were to have dementia, I would certainly want people on my team who, you know, would go along with what I wanted, you know, and I'm guessing in family circumstances that can get really tricky, can't it? You know, I'll give an example that so I eat a plant-based diet. That's my opinion. That's what I want to do. But members of my family don't see that as necessarily important. They might give me a shepherd's pie just because it's wholesome. I'd like to think that there'd be people on my side who would say, well, you know, this is what Laura wants.
I would be there saying, plant-based, is this a negotiation?
So important, isn't it? And I think that, you know, there's a lot of fear around dementia, isn't there? And it is, you know, part of that is letting go of choices and having other people make choices for you that might not necessarily be the ones that you would want.
But the point is, it's about appointing somebody who will continue to make choices in the style that you want your choices made. Sometimes it's not possible. So the common things that I hear a lot, I want to stay in my own home. Right. Absolutely, that's great. we will do the best that we can until all possible scenarios are exhausted. But some healthcare conditions just mean that's virtually impossible. And in which case we're left with no choice. So it's then working out, if this person absolutely has to go into a care home, what sort of home, what's the environment that's going to be most suitable for that person. But before that happens, it's about saying, we haven't exhausted all options yet. And I am attorney for some people as a professional attorney. And that's happened to me numerous times. And I've gone to not an insignificant number of discharge meetings where the healthcare professionals are saying to me, this person is not safe, they have to go into a care home. And I reply back, this is not happening until we have absolutely exhausted all options, or until it becomes so rotatingly unsafe. If somebody's having major problems that they're rotating into hospital every single week, that's not sustainable. But let's see what we can do to try and de-risk that and make that possible. And absolutely, that's what I try to do for the people that I work with.
So excuse the growling. Can you hear the growling?
I can't hear the growling.
I keep muting myself. But I really want to take this conversation a bit further in terms of, I remember sitting down with you, Hilary, and I said to you, just explain to me power of attorney, because I hear power of attorney, thrown about all the time, but I don't think I really had a really good take on what it was and why it's important. And I remember you saying to me that I needed to sort this sort of thing out. And you do tend to think, oh, it's an older person's thing, or when somebody gets ill and all the rest of it. So would you mind just talking a little bit about power of attorney for somebody who didn't know what it was? What is it? What is this that we keep bounding about this term?
Yeah. So an attorney is somebody who acts for another person, almost as their agent, and an attorney. So there are two kinds of power of attorney. One is for financial. An attorney can act even if the person retains their own mental capacity. And it's very useful if, for example, that person has a significant physical impairment and can't run their own errands. So if they're wheelchair bound or they're bed bound, but they may be completely cognitively able, but just need somebody to pick up the phone, to go to the bank, to do all sorts of stuff for them. The attorney at that point in time should be acting under the instructions of it. Technically, it's known as the donor, so the person who gave the power of attorney away. Mm-hmm. But the attorney they would have the authority to just go and make their own decisions. So what's really crucial is that you trust whoever you're appointing, if you're thinking of appointing them. And when I speak to clients, I'll say, if I ask you the question, do you trust your attorney? You've got one of three answers. Yes, you trust them. No, you don't trust them. Or I don't know whether or not I trust them. If you trust them, fine, appoint them. If you don't trust them, don't appoint them, because they will have an enormous amount of control over your life in the future, potentially. If you don't know that you trust them, don't appoint them. You need to be confident that they will behave in a way that's consistent with how you want them to behave. So they have complete access to all financial matters, and could steal from you. It would be very easy for them to do that. They shouldn't do it, but it's because they have access to your money, they can do that. It would be possible. So you need to be confident that they're not going to do that. In terms of health and welfare, an attorney cannot make decisions if the donor can make those decisions themselves. And obviously each decision is time and specific to that person. So some people are able to make some decisions, in which case, if they're able to make that decision, that's their decision. And some decisions are much more complicated. And so they can't make that decision. And to put that into context, maybe the person can't make a decision about whether or not they should go into a care home because it's where do they live, where's all their stuff, how are they going to arrange their treatment, how are they going to see their family and friends, where do they get the papers delivered? All of that, you know, and they can't go to the fish and chip shop that they always go to on a Friday. So lots of things would change. But if you said to them, do you want a cup of tea? They could probably answer that question.
Yeah.
So in which case, they might lack capacity about where to live, but have capacity about a cup of tea.
Mm-hmm. And so, and you can have a different person, can't you? Is that right, for the financial and for the health?
You can
it
do.
doesn't necessarily have to be the same. And what if you don't have somebody who you trust? What can you do in those instances?
So in those instances, it really depends on what you want and also what your means are. So I can do it, or somebody like me can do it. And there are plenty of people that I act for, but I cost money. And if that person hasn't got money in which to pay me, then sadly my firm will be reluctant about me giving away lots and lots and lots of time. Obviously I do quite a bit of pro bono work for the community that I work for, but I wouldn't take on a pro bono deputyship or attorneyship matter. And then what you're looking at, or what that person would be looking at, would be probably the local authority. They are appointee of last resort.
Okay.
And they have a team who will do it. They do charge if there's money, but if there's no money, then they have to do it.
Okay.
And they can make quite institutional and quite risk-averse decisions.
The cotton wool comes in again, doesn't it?
Cotton wool comes in.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. So it would be really nice, if you don't mind, to talk just a little bit about your journey with your mum, because you know that there's that, you know, very personal aspect as well of your relationship with dementia. Yeah. Your mum had dementia.
Yeah. So my mum died a couple of years ago now, but for the last just under 3 years of her life, she had a major collapse at home, unattended. She was very slowly beginning to lose a bit of capacity, but she initially she was fine. She was functioning fine at home, but she would forget things like, if she went to the front, she'd forget a PIN number. So she couldn't always remember those things consistently, but it wasn't, what she would do is just go to the bank, get some cash out, and then she was fine. So for 99% of the things that she needed to do, she was fine. And then she had this major collapse, and then she obviously had some sort of vascular event. She had vascular dementia, which means tiny little, lots of little mini strokes in the brain, which each one damages a little bit more of the brain. And so she, over time, loses a little bit more functionality. But it started with this one big collapse, and I was asked to go and meet her in hospital. And then from there, she continued to live in the community for the next 2 years. And I supported her, and I visited her weekly, and we arranged carers to come out once a week, and that worked fine. And there were a couple of instances across that 2-year period, but fundamentally she was really happy, and things were increasingly starting to get problematic for her. So we were then at that moment looking to do something more for her, and then unfortunately she had another collapse, unattended, and this time she was on the floor for, I would guess, about 2 to 3 days. So she was in a very sorry state. It was me who turned up and found her, which is really traumatic. It's a really, there are times, the journey of supporting somebody with dementia involves some great experiences. We went out for loads of lunches out. We'd have a great time. We used to go to the same cafe all the time and kind of have soup and a bit of cake and a cup of tea. And we went to, you know, we'd go to some other place and have fancy afternoon tea, you know, with the whole white linen napkins. So there are some great memories. But there were also some really tough times. And when I found her on the floor, there was this one moment where she kind of closed her eyes and put her head back. And I said to her, I'm here, the ambulance is on its way, everything's okay. And I think what she was doing was just kind of thinking, well, my daughter's going to sort it out, it's okay, and relaxed. And in that moment, I thought, oh, no, she's going to die. And I need to watch her die. And I'm not expecting this. I'm not prepared for this. She didn't die in that moment. She lived, she went to hospital. She had a major pressure sore from being on the ground for so long, was admitted into a care home, and died 9 months later. And I was with her when she died. So I although I didn't see it in that moment, I was there with her. And again, that, you know, I'd never seen a dead body. I had never in my entire life. I'm a solicitor, I'm not a nurse. I'd never seen a dead body. And the first one I see is my own mother's. So there are some traumatic things, but I'm now 2 years down the line from that.
Yeah.
And I've got a different perspective. And at the time that I was watching my mum die, I knew that that's what I was going to watch. I knew that she wanted me to be there. It was something that I felt I'd much rather not be here, but I kind of need to do that. And now I'm really, really, really grateful that I was there. And it was a very spiritual experience, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that I was there. But at the moment, you know, watching it, I was kind of like, no, don't really want to do this with my next few hours, however long as, you know, if I could choose, no, I wouldn't do this.
And do you mention in your book about death and about having a good death? Or because it's something that we really shy away, isn't it, from talking about?
Absolutely. So it's really important that even down to the details of, you know, if you can decide, who do you want to be there? Who do you not want to be there? Where do you want to be? You know, do you want, if you're at home, do you want the pets on the bed? Do you want a specific bed linen on your bed? Do you want music playing? Do you want the last thing that you hear to be Beethoven's concerto, or do you want it to be Elvis or something different? You know, what do you, or silence? What do you want? You can choose all of this. For my mum, she, with the benefit of hindsight, although she wasn't afraid of being dead, ironically, she was afraid of the process of dying and really didn't want to do it alone. And when I was in the room with her, there was this moment where my phone was pinging, and I could hear it, and I kind of went, because I was meant to be in the office that day, and I had to phone the office and go, I'm not coming back. I need to be here. And then I could hear my phone pinging, and so I sort of kind of moved, and because she's holding my hands, she absolutely white knuckled my hands. She had such a vice-like grip. At this point in time, she was a dying woman who probably weighed about 4.5 stone. She hadn't eaten for a couple of days. She was dehydrated. How she had the strength to grip that tightly, I don't know, but she did. And what was clear is that she absolutely didn't want me to leave. That was really, really, really important to her. So I kind of said, look, all I'm doing is getting my phone and I'm switching on silent. I'm not leaving you. But yeah, she kind of cut off circulation to the ends of my fingers in making sure that I didn't leave. And she actually didn't let go, even though I'm then continuing to hold her hands. Her grip didn't loosen for about 20 minutes after that. She was so desperate to not die alone.
Wow, what a beautiful moment. And, you know, thank you for sharing that too. I'm sure that's really helpful for people. And I think it is something we really shy away from in our culture to talk about. And of course, it's an inevitable part, isn't it, of life for all of us. And like you said, you know, planning that is so important, isn't it, that it's right for us. And it's person-centeredness right the way through to the end of our life, isn't it? So yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, what I want to do is because I know that you've got these top tips, haven't you, in your book? And so I have the book, said book here, which I feel very honoured to have in my hands, I must say. So one of the ones that I wanted, I think there's 17 in all, and I don't think we'll have time to do all of them today, but I just wanted to pick up a few. So one of them was about planning for tomorrow. So it says, plan for tomorrow, learn the lessons from yesterday, but focus on today and make today a happy day. Yeah. And do that every day. Yeah, absolutely. So with my mum, in the book, I give lots of examples, and all of the examples are based on real people, but they're all that enough of the story has changed that anybody that I mention isn't a real person. So if I talk about Bob with the blue eyes, Bob doesn't exist, but there was somebody who did something kind of like Bob with the blue eyes did. Or a version of it, and I talk about my mum. So if I talk about my mum for that one, my mum. So it's taking the past. My mum was kind of really posh, actually. She was quite a snob, if I'm honest, and so hence loved the kind of, when we had afternoon tea, loved the place with the white the linen. That was really important to her. She loved that. Give me a mug, I'll be fine. But no, cut saucer, she loved it. So it's taking the past and making somebody, taking those things that are really important to somebody, and plan for the future. So get your power of attorney in place, get your will in place, talk about what you want to do. I had conversations with my mum about what she wanted at her funeral, what hymns did she want, what flowers did she want, and actually I think the best funerals have a little bit of a combination of what she, what somebody else, what they want, and then also what the family wants. So there's that kind of dual input. So plan for the future, get all of those things, talk to that person. If you want to stay at home, what do you want to stay? If you have to go into a care home, what's really important to you? Is it a place that you can take your cat with you? Is that what's really important to you? Bearing in mind the kitten. For those of you who've just joined, Hilary has
just
a little kitten on her lap.
Sorry, she was asleep.
Very cute. Very cute.
Go back to sleep. So what's important to you? So it's having those questions so that and having guidance, and guidance is better than strict, I will only go into X care home. Well, what happens if X care home isn't suitable, can't meet your needs? It's much better to have, I want to do it in this style, so that you understand the guidance under which the future decisions are being made. So having looked at the past, having planned for the future, the main focus is in, what can I do today? Now, today here in Plymouth, it's pouring with rain and it's really windy.
Yeah, you wouldn't know it from your background screen, would you? Because you look like you're on a beach, somewhere lovely.
I love it.
Because you're in the moment, you see, Hilary. You're in your own moment.
I'm in my own moment. Absolutely. So it's about focusing on a day like today. If I was going to take my mum out for a lunch, she'd probably want to go somewhere that we couldn't sit outside. So it's not going to be a place with a great view necessarily. It's somewhere that she's going to feel warm. And because at the moment I'm looking at the rain and thinking, I need to snuggle. It's cold and horrible outside. So what's today, what's the circumstances of today going to be that would make that person happy? Is it going out for lunch? Is it just having a sandwich and
snuggling in a blanket?
Snuggle under a blanket, watch some Netflix. What is it that's going to make that person happy? And then if you do that every single day, look at today, what can I do to make this person happy today? And I have lots of conversations about chocolate and cheese and cigarettes, booze. you know, so most people have numerous guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, there shouldn't be guilty pleasures. They should just be categorized as pleasures. People shouldn't feel guilty about them. And usually when I kind of going, so it's fags, it's booze, it's chocolate, it's crisps, it's nuts, it's cheese. Somebody will then pipe up going, "Ooh, I love a walnut whip." Like, walnut whip it is then. Well, let's make sure that you get a walnut whip at least, you know, once a day, once a week, whatever's the best thing for you.
A box of delights. That's what we all need, don't we?
Exactly. So and those little things will be the things that the memories are made of. And my position now, because of my kind of benefit of being able to look back, because I've got a different perspective, it's those days that we did the things like that really are the incredible fond memories that I've got.
And I think that that's lovely that you're able to do that, to say, okay, we've got dementia in our lives, but we can still get new memories in terms of, you know, for you, for taking forward some lovely memories of spending time with your mum.
Yeah.
Even though dementia's in the room, you know, it's that there's no reason why people can't have a lovely time, is there? But we rely on the people around us much more to make that happen.
Yeah. And my mum remembered them. She remembered those. There were a couple of specific things that we did with my mum. And we did actually have a big family gathering, and there were about 21 of us in the room. We had a fancy afternoon tea. And at that point in time, my mum didn't really fully recognize everybody who was in the room, but what she did know, it was all her family. What she was remembering is that she was remembering my cousins from when they were much smaller, or their children from when they were babies. And of course, she's looking at these grown adults thinking, no idea who you are.
Yeah.
But she absolutely remembered that afternoon tea, and she did know it was her family, even though she couldn't name them. And she had such a lovely time. And she used to talk about it all the time. She would voluntarily talk about it. And we'd got a photo book and we'd look through it. And she absolutely loved it and loved the remembering of it. So it wasn't just my memories, it was hers as well. Yeah, and that's part of why I've got these very fond memories, because I know that I got that bit right. I made mistakes, but that bit I got right.
We're all going to make mistakes, aren't we? I mean, that's part of it, isn't it? Okay, let me look at another top tip then. I'm just going to do this.
Moving around.
Okay. Yeah, so let's go for number 2, actually, which is expect issues to arise, because that kind of says what we've just been saying. There will be new and unexpected problems, and understanding that they are coming makes their arrival much easier.
Yeah. So actually that piece of advice, I tell that to lots of people, and that piece of advice really hit home when I had a phone call with a lady, and then 6 months later she phoned me back and she said that piece of advice was the single most important piece of advice anybody in the preceding 6 months had ever given her. And I was kind of like, well, it's meant to be a little bit of tiny wisdom, it wasn't meant to be that profound. But for her it was, and actually understanding that there will be problems, so that if you sort out a power of attorney and think, well, I've sorted out the financial issues, so now everything's going to be okay. But then they have a fall or they get a UTI and it's completely unconnected. And then there are problems. And what I tell people is, it will be okay. If you sort out the power of attorney, it will be okay for a while. What we don't know is how long that period of time is going to last, and what's going to come next. But knowing that something's going to come, when it does happen, if you kind of go, oh well, I've been expecting this, that's I've still got to deal with it, but I've been expecting this, as opposed to, oh no, I thought everything was okay. I thought it was all sorted, and now this has happened and it's a disaster. And it's about resourcing yourself for those things that come, because they will come. And therefore, when they do come, it's that little bit easier because you've always been expecting this.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to pick another one. I'm going to pick talk. Talk to the person with dementia, healthcare professionals and other carers, as well as family members and loved ones. How important is talking?
But you can find out all sorts of information by talking to them, and as people with dementia deteriorate, they will still retain some core elements of who they are, what's important to them, and it's by talking to them that you understand what those core elements are. And for example, when I went to a restaurant with my mum, how could I know what sandwich she wanted, or what, you know, she would always have the same cup of tea, so I could kind of predict that. But beyond that, it's not right for me to make the decision about what she eats. So it's not a question of me looking at the menu and making a choice for her. It's a question of, here's the menu. And quite often I'd be like, I can't find my glasses. So we had a very similar prescription. So it's like, right, there's my glasses. You look at the menu, and then she'd say to me, well, what are you going to eat? And I'd say, oh, I haven't decided yet. And I'm like you, Laura, I'm plant-based. So we would eat different things. And the risk was, what I worked out is that she would just copy me.
Right.
And so I would go, oh no, I can't make my mind up. What are you going to do? And that would force her to make the choice herself. Yeah. But that way, I knew she was getting what she wanted. And unless you talk, that's just one tiny example. But it's about talking to that person with dementia. You will never know what they want. You're making assumptions, and you might be right, but you will not know for sure until you talk to them. And actually, at the very core of who I feel I am as a person and as a professional, and I can't let this go when I'm not professional, is I see myself as a human rights lawyer. And to me, there's something very fundamental about still treating a person with dementia as a person, and why can't they have a view? Why can't they be spoken to? And to not talk to them is dehumanizing. And nobody should be treated in a dehumanized way at all.
It's a really interesting one when you see the dynamic between loved ones and people living with dementia, where sometimes, and you can totally see it when somebody is caring 24/7, and it becomes just easier. It's just easier to make those assumptions. And that's, you know, with no judgment on that at all. But just kind of being aware, isn't it, about noticing, am I really giving this choice, or am I jumping ahead and deciding for somebody? It's such an important one, isn't it? How we and another one, actually, I'll just give another example of having been in and out of care environments for actually all my career, and noticing how often people with dementia, we can all make assumptions about people with dementia, even in the fact that they won't be able to take part in this conversation. So you'll suddenly find yourself in a conversation where the person with dementia is here, and you're being pulled into a conversation about them right in front of them. And I teach this in my training, of how I always get right down as far as I can, so I'm almost invisible on the same level as the person with dementia, and keep shooting those questions to the person with dementia until, you know, it's understood that we're going to include this person in the conversation, regardless of how verbal they are. We need to have them in the conversation. So I really like that top tip. It's a good one. Talk.
Yeah. Absolutely. And they can, even if they're non-verbal, they can communicate back through body language. They have a good day where they can do other things. But but absolutely, you know, have that conversation with them, include them.
Yeah. Just for a minute, I'm just going to have a look at the live stream. And do we have any questions? Like, I noticed that there's quite a few of you watching. If you want to ask a question, please just pop a little question in the comments, and I will ask Hilary. We'll fire questions at her, which is currently what I'm doing at the moment anyway. So bung me some questions and I'll ask Hilary. So while you're doing that, I'm going to hit another one. Right, so this is a good one. You talk about getting a diagnosis. So this is one of your tips, is get a diagnosis, because lots of people don't have a diagnosis. Get a diagnosis, it says. This will answer the question about what has changed and will provide access to support, medical treatment and social care help. Talk to us about that, because that's a biggie.
That's a biggie, yeah, absolutely. So in writing the book, I have interviewed quite a few different carers and people with dementia as well, to find out their views. It's not every piece of consultation has come directly from me and through my professional experience. And one of the things that people with dementia have said to me is that they themselves will have noticed something's different, but they don't really know what. They can't quite put their finger on it as to what's happening and what's going on. And the diagnosis actually answers the question, what is the thing that's happened to them? And there's quite a lot of relief in knowing that, and pretty universally in the people that I asked about how did they feel about when they got the diagnosis, their views were, and obviously other people will feel differently, but most of the people that I spoke to said they were quite glad that they'd got the diagnosis because it answered the question. And the other point is it will help plan for the future, because then you know, hopefully you'll know what kind of dementia it is, but if nothing else, you know it's a dementia, which means it's deteriorating, which means things are going to change in the future. So you can start to have the conversations about, well, when things gets worse, what do you want to happen? And so that's really crucial, is it involves the person with dementia in making decisions about their future care. But also some things from social care and some aspects of support are not available unless you've got a diagnosis. So the diagnosis is the crucial gateway to some support. Not every form of support requires the diagnosis, but some of it definitely does. And so it becomes, not having it becomes the barrier. I know Memory Matters, the diagnosis isn't crucial.
Yeah, no, it's not. And just, I guess we're lucky in some ways, because we're not commissioned to provide. And I think when you're commissioned to provide, you do have to provide within that remit sometimes. So so we sort of say people, as long as they have short-term memory difficulties, then certainly they can engage in cognitive stimulation therapy that we do. And anybody with any worries about memory also can come into our hub and get support too. So yeah, so it's a really good point. It's interesting with the getting a diagnosis thing, because I know that some people shy away from getting that diagnosis because of the stigma, and that, you know, as much as we're talking, this is what this week's about, isn't it? Is trying to bring down the stigma of dementia, but it's still seen as, you know, something really very frightening, not helped at all by how it looks in the media and the headlines of various papers. And, you know, it's such a big battle, isn't it? You can see why somebody who's living alone, who's a bit worried about their memory, will be quite frightened to go to the GP. So I think your tip's really, really important in, you know, getting people to realize how important that diagnosis is and what happens after it. And actually, as frightening as it may seem to get the diagnosis, that actually so much opens up for you when you've got it. Yeah. And obviously, I think one of the things to say is that because of COVID, it's taking longer, isn't it, to get a diagnosis at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is that if somebody had a cancer, you wouldn't get anybody kind of going, oh, don't bother. No, it's going to be terminal. Don't worry. Don't bother. Just leave it. Yeah, you'd be saying, no, I want the diagnosis. I want to know what's going on. I want any treatment and therapies and support that's available for me. And why should dementia be treated any different?
Yeah. Essentially, I want to live well with this, whatever it is that I have. I want to live well. That's what we want, isn't it?
Exactly. Absolutely. And it's not it's not necessarily about chasing absolute longevity, you know, every last second. It's about chasing happiness much harder than you chase holding off death.
Yeah. Very poignant. And that goes back to your, you know, the making every day a happy day, or at least attempting to make every day a happy day, that being the where we want to be, is being in that moment. Okay. And
not chasing it, and but also just kind of, you know, getting somebody dressed and washed and giving them some breakfast isn't necessarily enough. You know, what else is there to do? Because my life isn't just about getting up and getting dressed and having breakfast. You know,
and then you sit in a chair. There you go. Until you need to go to the loo, and then you can go to the loo. Yeah.
That, you know, that is not a quality of life. So if I wouldn't want that for me now, then why is it okay suddenly for somebody with a dementia that's an okay life for them? Chase happiness.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this again. You know what I'm going to do?
Get a kitten.
Get a kitten. Chase the things that are going to make you happy.
Yeah. What gives you joy? And I think that's even not just for people with dementia, that's for all of us, isn't it? Absolutely. Like, fill your lives with joy, because it's a short time on this planet.
And Laura, that's exactly the point. Why are people with dementia in this one category of people and everybody else is over here, and there's complete separation? Why are they them and we're us? Why aren't we all us? Why aren't people with dementia us?
Yeah.
Actually, they are.
They are. And may well be me and you. And that's the thing, isn't it? And I think that really helps, I think, if you're thinking about dementia and how we treat people with dementia, just to be thinking, you know, this could be you. And the statistics say that it may be, you know, dementia is affecting more and more people. And we've got you know, a top heavy population. This is going to become more and more and more a part of all of our lives. So, okay.
Absolutely. And
so sorry.
It is that point. They are this, you know, it is, we are, I'm struggling with my words now, I've got really passionate about it, but there's no division. You know, this could be where we're heading. So if we want good care like this in the future, we need to be providing for it now. And we need to be, you know, think about, if I had dementia in the future, what would I want? How would I want to be treated? Would I want to just sit in a room until I needed to have a warm cup of very milky tea? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. And it's, I mean, that sort of builds, it's both of our passions, isn't it? It's like why we exist. It's why we're here doing the jobs that we do. It's because that's what we believe in, and that's what we're, you know, that's exactly how I look at it. Is, you know, I'd like to be able to, when I'm retired, walk away from Memory Matters and say, phew, now if I get dementia, it's going to be all right. And there's so many different organizations and different people doing this around, you know, around the world, and some great stuff happening. That's why this week is so important, isn't it? It's so important to link up with people and see what they're doing. I think post-COVID or in COVID, because we've had these great Zoom conversations with so many people, I you know, I'm linking up with people all over the world who are doing amazing things in dementia, and it really fuels me to think, it's okay. It's not just us. It's not just a small pocket of people that think like this, but actually there's lots and lots of people, and the tide is changing. I hope. Absolutely. I feel very confident.
Yeah, and it's with that sharing of information. That's why I wrote the book. With that sharing of information, no one person can be the creator of all wonderful ideas in the world. It's not going to happen. It's about kind of saying, you know, it's about all organizations going, look what they're doing over there. That's amazing. Can we do that? Or could we adapt it? Is it going to work for us? And recognizing we are all a community, all of us, people with and without dementia, you know, but even just Joe Blogg's person walking down the street, we are us. This may well have an impact on that person's life, either now or at some point in the future. So how can we all globally work together to take out the stigma and make the situation better for anybody who's affected by dementia in any way? Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, well, do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? Please send us a question. We want questions. No, we have people watching, Hilary. You'll be pleased to know that we haven't been broadcasting to nobody, because, you know, that would be no good.
It's nice to talk to Laura.
Well, that's true. If there is anybody who's just come on at the end and wants to watch it, then we will be putting it on YouTube. So you'll have the joy of watching, or if you want to watch it again because you loved it that much, you can do so. But yeah, any questions at all? I don't think we've got any questions. Nobody's asking any questions. Okay. Well, we might have time for another tip then. Should we go for another tip?
Go for another tip.
Okay. Oh, there's so many good ones. Oh, okay, let's have this one. So that having social connections is a crucial part of well-being. Maintain old connections and make new ones.
Yeah. So if anybody's not seen it, there's an absolutely amazing TED Talk, 10 Minutes of Your Life You Will Not Regret. And it's done from the Harvard Study of Adult Development. And this is the longest running study of humans that's run to date. And it started in about, I talked to anybody who will listen. I'm a massive fan of this TED Talk. So it started in something like the 1930s. So my kind of detailed knowledge of it is shaky, but the principles are there. So it started about the 1930s, and they studied one particular or a couple of years of people who were in Harvard, which obviously narrows down the socioeconomic group really to a very limited group. And they then went to a very deprived part of Chicago and found something like 300 young men and said, we'd like to study you as well, because we need a bit of variety in our group. And they were all men. Every original participant was male at that point in time. And there was something like in total about 400 participants at the very beginning in the 1930s. And what they did was they went back and studied them every 2 years. They took blood tests and did brain scans, and they asked them all these questions. And then they worked out, of course, over time, who lived for a really long time, who held off all the chronic illnesses of old age. And so they were able to kind of go, right, well, we know who made it to 90. So let's go back and see what they were doing when they were 50.
Oh, wow.
To 90. And, you know, is it that they were exercising, eating 5 fruit and veg a day? You know, what is it that they were doing? And the answer to the question is they had really good social connections. Right. So and that's why COVID will the studies around COVID will happen for the decades to come. But I suspect what we're going to find is one of the tragedies of the impact of isolating people is going to be not good for anybody's health. And there'll be all sorts of health implications of a year of isolating ourselves away. But because it's so crucially important to well-being, social connections, actually, this will make a real difference to people with dementia. They will really enjoy continuing to see their old friends. And I get people who kind of like, well, I don't know what to say to that person. Just be with them. Yeah. Have a cup of tea. Tell them what you did to the day. You know, tell them the boring stuff. You know, I struggled to find pasta in the shop because there's a massive queue, and you know, actually just engage with those people.
If in doubt, have a sing song.
Absolutely. You know, go for a walk, do anything, watch the football, but do, you know, just be with that person, and if they don't communicate, be the person who's happy and who's smiling, because they will remember that somebody happy and smiling came to visit them, even if they can't remember your name. And for people who are supporting somebody with dementia, actually building those networks, immense information is passed across those networks about what's going on locally. What can I do? What's a great place to take somebody for a cup of tea? What place has the best cake? You know, all sorts of information, as well as what benefits are available, what professional support, what clubs they can go to. All that information gets passed through these social connections. And it's very supportive for carers as well to be part of that community where they feel supported. And as I said, the Harvard study of longevity, of adult development, will statistically show how crucially important it is. The single most important thing for well-being.
That's a great takeaway, really, from today, isn't it? For all of us, is to make sure that we have really good social connections. We're hardwired for it, aren't we, as humans? Yeah. It's what we're meant to do. We're meant to be around the campfire, aren't we, with other humans? And isolation is, well, it can just devastate people, can't it, in terms of health? So that's brilliant. I'm just going to ask you one more question before we finish. I know that it's 1 o'clock, we might have gone over slightly, but I just really wanted to ask this question. If you were diagnosed with dementia, Hilary, what would be, let's say, the 3 things that you would make sure that you did?
Well, I've already done some of them just because I'm a lawyer and I like to do these things. So I've got powers of attorney in place already. So for anybody who thinks, oh, I'm too young, well, I never admit to being older than 27, and I have powers of attorney in place already. I've already got a will, but I would want to have conversations around what I would want what's important to my future care, and making sure that the things that might seem really little are actually really important. I want cake. Cake would be up there as a
chocolate
priority.
I love it. Brilliant. Okay. Well, oh, and I do want to say as well about the power of attorney, because I remember having the conversation with you, and I still haven't sorted it out, but I do remember you saying, you know, you think you don't need it, but you just don't know what's around the corner, and I might lose my capacity, my mental capacity tomorrow. Who, you know, none of us know, do we? So it's about that planning, and I think that that's a really important message, actually.
It's why I did it, because I could be involved in a car accident at any moment in time. So who knows? The chances are I won't.
Yeah.
But it could happen. And I've got the situation, I've got the things in place just in case it does. And my kids, because my kids are my attorneys, and I modelled to them what an attorney does when I looked after my mum, because I was her attorney.
Yeah, great. So they're good to have on your team as well then. Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Hilary. This has been so lovely. It's just been nice to have a chat, hasn't it? Really great.
Thank you for everybody who's watching, but thank you to Memory Matters for inviting me. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's great to partner with Nash Co on this as well. So yeah, big thank you, Hilary, and I will stop the live now, she says. Oh, yes. Yeah. No, we're still on Facebook. Don't swear yet, Hilary.